What is the research telling us in terms of feed intake and performance on some of these new DDG products?
Well, for the next generation ones, we've worked with a couple of what we think are the leading process manufacturers, and some of those have been adopted in plants in Nebraska and other states, but it's not real common yet, but there's a few plants operating today. And I think that when we look at some of those fiber that's mixed with the solubles or the syrup that's also in those plants, we saw surprisingly close performance to feeding regular distillers grains. Now they're going to continue to change that a little bit, and we're doing some cutting edge things or new things on evaluating that, but so far it looks fine with all of the products that are being produced, that it's still an excellent cattle feed. As Mike alluded to, you know, that may require some adjustments depending upon how prices are, but I think we'll adapt, and it still looks positive in comparison to corn. We've tested a lot of the dry versus wet versus modified, which are kind of partially dried here in the state of Nebraska, because really we have all three. Mike's in a location where he's blessed to have really wet or modified, and we do see that by drying it takes a little bit of value out of it for the cattle, but that's necessary if you don't have a lot of cattle right next to you, and you can ship it further. It does increase shelf life, and it's still an excellent protein supplement, especially in forage-fed cattle. So there's a whole lot of, you know, this is a segment in its own on how to use distillers grains the best and what's coming. So it's a complicated issue, but we're all wising up, and I think we've learned a lot in the last 20 years. We'll just have to keep learning the next 20.
Well, so look ahead. I mean, what are those new frontiers we're exploring in terms of the net new avenues to look at relative to the efficiency of using corn and feeding cattle?
Well, we've been looking at what does this do to the sustainability picture, so doing some life cycle analyses, and as you change the process, that influences that life cycle assessment. We've also been looking at where is it most optimized, and so as I mentioned, if it's truly a protein supplement, we think that optimization's probably in growing forage-fed backgrounding type cattle. In many cases, even cattle out on range, but a lot of our cow-calf producers across the country like feeding distillers grains, especially in the wintertime as a protein supplement. It's always been probably the most palatable feed you can supplement the cattle. We've joked that if you really want your cattle to come up and check them, start supplementing some distillers grains. Some people have to worry about running over them because they get in front of the wagon. It's a palatable feed once they get on it. It's great for receiving cattle. It's great for into a feed yard. We're looking at how does it interact with other ingredients. So how does it fit with Mike's operation where he's feeding high moisture corn? How does it fit with operations using dry corn? How does it fit some of our larger yards that are flaking or in the sun? So there's a whole lot of interactions and things we like to test on the use of distillers grains, and we expect more of that in the future.